For the entire duration of the movie, there will be the usual cliché of the full moon.
Right! It is I, Tai Lung.
It is actually the chameleon who transformed to pose as Tai Lung, and every time she transforms she has blue eyes and a distorted voice. So, why does Tai Lung now have yellow eyes and speak as usual? Fire cannot burn everything instantly as shown here, unless they poured gasoline all over it. And fire cannot cast such definite shadows.
Probably just kicking back and catching some rays.
And just by chance, Lee guessed that P is fighting just against a ray, even though it is the strangest opponent he has ever had. And this ray does nothing but always aim and strike a meter away from the panda, just so he doesn't get hurt. And since when did rays become some kind of military fighter? Explain to me why in this scene he doesn't destroy Poe's staff in one move. It turns out that all along the ray had 3 pigs in its belly, which Poe is saving. Now, I want to know how it is possible that they came out dry from their bellies, and how it is possible that they did not die without air and immersed in water all this time.
I'm late! Oh, I'm late!
In the middle of the sentence, Put teleports 200 meters away from the bridge. The hero signs the forehead of Master Shifu, who was not at that spot a second earlier. And then he accidentally poses with him for the drawing, although it is impossible for Put not to have noticed him considering that he looked straight in his direction. The temple staircase is very long and has several curves, but here it becomes about 10 times shorter and completely straight. Shifu decides to make Put the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace, which makes absolutely no sense counting that he is the worst candidate for the role of the village sage and is 100,000 times more useful as a warrior. And by the way, he is not even old enough to be a sage, he is still a kid.
What is it you're holding? A cookie?
Where did you get that from if you had nothing in your left hand? Now Shifu teleports 5 meters to the side in the middle of the sentence.
Nothing about them says dragon or warrior.
Well, you don't particularly look like him either. It is impossible for peaches and flowers to be on the tree at the same time. They are 2 different seasons. Judging from this scene, we miss the moment when someone injected a powerful anesthetic into the Poe's back.
Of whispering warriors, which I've already broken twice!
You destroyed that urn only once in the first film. The second time it was destroyed by your father. But grabs the artifacts in a pile and lays them on the floor next to him. Seconds later, there is nothing next to him. After sliding on the oil on the floor, the panda stands up with a completely clean back. This cage is totally useless. If the fox can get his head through with such ease, then she can also get out of it without any problems. Lights the road with a lantern, although there is plenty of light, and you can see perfectly. There are goose guards on either side of the door. A minute later they disappear, and a minute later they're there again. Jun has put chains on Shifu that are 3 times as big as his arm and should fall to the ground immediately. With Crocodile, the same strangeness occurs as with Tai Lung. He too is a fake, but his eyes do not glow blue and his voice is normal. These 2 servants on either side of the chameleon appear out of nowhere during the transformation. And the place decorations clearly come from Mexico, even though the story takes place in China. And how did the rabbit flying through the window hit P if he was standing to the side at the time? Judging by the steam, the soup is boiling, so the rabbit should be screaming in pain right now. And how is the soup boiling if the pot is on the table and there is no fire under it? The fish captain could not talk out of the water, since air is not its natural habitat. Jun doesn't want to be caught cheating, so he keeps the chips in his tail, so they can fall out at any moment. And if all the customers are criminals, and the mistress is no different, how did they let a stranger take their winnings instead of throwing her out seconds after she cheated them? You don't have to be a genius to see how it is when someone claims to be playing for the first time and then cheats you by winning everything. A couple of barrels knocked out a group of criminals. The most powerful weapons should not be used from the beginning, but only after a long fight to give the audience a battle scene.
Who designed the tavern on a cliff? I shouldn't have eaten all those dumplings!
The director thinks that if he points out one of the nonsense in the film, it will seem a little more meaningful. P and Jun fall directly onto the deck of the ship, even though it was moored too far away for them to do so. The cliché of heroes who like to dangle dramatically over the abyss with one arm. And do we want to talk about the ledge that appeared under Lee after we were shown the total void a second earlier? Why is there the sound of a slap on human skin if we're talking about a paw hitting fur? How did that little pig stick the sheets so high without a ladder? And why did he stick hundreds of them in the same place instead of putting just 2 or 3? China's best fighter was unable to avoid being arrested and thrown into a cage by 2 ordinary street guards. And as soon as he escapes, his portraits formed on the walls exactly 10 seconds later. He slips on his stomach and face forward a second later in a completely different way. And of course the last second rescue cliché can never be missed. In a huge city, P crushed 2 carts from the same merchant within 2 minutes of each other. In the sewer system of a city, there are no huge halls, but only pipes 2 to 3 meters wide at most. The monkeys steal the hero's pants, and not only did they not have a chance to do so without him noticing, but the camera was even filming him in close-up the whole time, so his pants just disappeared. A light bulb was apparently inserted into the soup pot. Why don't the customers of the tavern run out as soon as the building starts to move and almost collapses? Do they want to die so badly? Also, where is this support they showed us a few minutes earlier? The house, instead of falling sideways, goes straight down as if the whole cliff has collapsed vertically into the water. The stairs go up to the building somewhere on the side of the mountain. Although in the view from the bay, they went straight up from the city to a completely different place, and that is where in fact it reappears at the end of the story. The cliché, every insurmountable fortress has a secret back door that a saboteur architect built especially to make it more convenient for enemies to sneak in, with cover tacked protecting intruders from the guards above. The lid is intact, but a moment later a large hole appears, and soon after the lid disappears completely. Ping and Lee just happened to run into the very guys who brought the heroes to this town, because in the film all huge towns are the size of small villages. And why do Poe's search notices cover the side streets, but are completely absent on Main Street? That's the first thing Ping and Lee should have seen within a minute of their arrival. The chameleon has decided to hire the dumbest criminals of all, who are not even capable of trivially guarding the entrance. And P is just stupid to put the lid on like this. Can someone explain to me under what laws of physics the lid makes this movement instead of rolling down? And how did the guards not get woken up by the rattling of the lid on the stairs, but get up instantly by a barely perceptible sound of a fart? The same engineer from before who designed the secret entrance also designed this nonsensical tunnel. It would have been much more difficult for the chameleon to catch P in the cage if he had not accidentally landed in the right place in a huge hall. The cliché, a positive character, turns out to be a villain in the end.
All of this just to get me to give you the Staff of Wisdom?
So, did Jen enter the temple to get caught by P, then drag him to the villain by cunning? But then why did she say nothing about knowing how to find the witch when she was arrested? If P had not thought to visit her, she would still be rotting in jail.
I was turned away from every training hall I went to. They would say I was too small.
According to this logic, Mantis, who is much smaller, should also have been rejected. In the scene of the escape from the magic cage, Pa has the power of Superman, which can shatter a stone floor. And if he is so powerful, why couldn't he lift the cage? Yes, he cannot break it because of magic, but he cannot weigh several tons if the villain's servants were dragging it up the mountain with 4 of them. An incredibly fast and agile fighter is standing there, doing nothing in a situation where just stepping to the side was enough. Jean is 3 steps away from the chameleon, then moves 10 meters away. The villain's henchmen have the superpower of crawling up vertical walls? Geese cannot fly, so Mr. Ping had to plummet down instantly, while Lee appears on that branch by pure magic. And explain to me how these 2 saved P at the last moment by materializing out of nowhere, and how they managed to get off that branch. Not only has the full moon swelled to absurd proportions, but it is practically radiating sunlight. Cliché, the villain, instead of dealing with the enemy from the beginning in a couple of seconds, first makes him fight his useless henchmen to make everyone die, and only then uses his magic.
General Kai!
How would you summon him if P turned him into molecules in the 3rd film? Kai no longer exists in the spirit world.
How? You're alive!
And despite the rain, he is completely dry. By the way, the director completely forgot that until a few minutes ago, the weather was quite clear before the scene and immediately after, so the source of the storm is not at all clear. Yes, and if this is the night of the red moon, then why on the same night is the moon of normal color, but after a while it turns red again? Scene copied from The Matrix. During the fight with the lizards, Ping and Lee make chairs and cocktails appear out of thin air. Crazy rabbits have the ability to instantly grow sharp teeth and immediately turn them into their previous rabbit teeth. P sneaked in the front door, even though it opens with a lot of noise, and they all had to hear it.
Take it. I already have everything I...
Without any logical reason, the villain gives her enemies the most powerful weapon so that they can beat her with it. And how does the chameleon turn into P and fight him with his moves if to do, so she would have to use his staff to steal his kung fu, which she did not do. In this scene, gravity disappeared completely.
Out of that cage anytime you wanted? You faker!
How did he get out of the cage enchanted by magic and impervious to blows? When you knock out an opponent, it is best to leave him where he is and not even look in his direction so that he can awaken and strike you from behind. The return of the Kung Fu Masters is accompanied by the automatic unlocking of cells, just for the epic scene. Characters behave threateningly for no reason, only to reveal themselves as friendly a second later. Tai Lung jumps half a meter away from the hero between blows. And why is he so tall when they were clearly the same height in the first film? Both General Kai and Shin show respect for Puh, even though they both hated him, and he was the one who killed them.
Pack some food for your time in jail.
Will Jun go to prison to finish his sentence? Can't the Dragon Warrior, with his power, grant her amnesty for her services, just as he got her out of prison by circumventing all the laws? And it is a little strange that the hero chose this girl as the new Dragon Warrior, considering that she is a thief and at one point betrayed Puh. Shifu spills the tea on the ground as he walks away, but the liquid evaporates in the next scene.